Is it time to start stacking gold over silver? How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Empire Precious Metals. If you're new to the channel, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a guy talking about precious metals, so make sure you blast that subscribe button. Get the bell notification click. That way you get updated with any new content. I'm very excited for today's video. I am talking about gold and silver and which one should you be stacking. And I do have a interview with Colin, Kettell, founder and CEO of Nevada King, and it's actually very interesting to see what he says about gold prices. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about gold and silver. And one of the things that Colin and I do talk about is the undervalued metals upside potentials. In this case, we are talking right now about silver. Now, a lot of people within the stacking community, they buy silver because they feel that there is just a tremendous upside. It's relatively inexpensive compared to when you are buying gold. You can easily access silver. You could buy it relatively cheaply. It's beautiful. It's fun to look at. You could collect a lot of it, so on and so forth. And a lot of people, they say that, you know, gold doesn't have as much upside potential. It's very expensive. And so people kind of get that dopamine fix when they do quickly go to buying silver. However, even though gold prices have kind of waned, right? We did hit that, broke that $2,000 an ounce mark not too long ago, maybe 5, 6, 7 months ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, but gold prices have retreated, and now we're sitting at around 1780 at the time of the recording of this video. But there are experts who believe that gold definitely is going to see a significant bump in prices. I have had individuals on this channel who are experts who have talked about this, traders as well as CEOs from various mining companies and investing firms. However, when it comes to the prices of gold, it's actually going to probably surprise you as to what Colin Kettell believes is going to happen with the prices of gold in 2022. I am very excited to have with me founder and CEO Colin Kettell of Nevada King. Colin, how's everything going?
Going well, going well. Thank you so much. Beautiful images of gold stacked there in front of you. Love to see it.
I figured you would, you know, especially being that you are so heavily involved with gold. I figured that this was the right metal to have it on display. Speaking of which, I did want to ask you something. I watched a prior interview with you and a friend of mine, Yankee Stacking, and you were talking about stacking physical metals, and he brought up the metals that you prefer, and you had answered platinum. I got to ask you, why is platinum something that you like to stack physically?
Yeah, so platinum is definitely one of the considered precious metals. I am always of the opinion, kind of contrarian mindset, if you will, that things that are cheap tend to go up more than things that are not cheap, and the entire precious metal sector is cheap. But of particular interest, if I were to buy metal, would be silver and platinum, both for the same reason. Gotcha. That they're historically they're undervalued against gold right now.
And that's actually a sentiment that I hear a lot of within the stacking community. They feel that, you know, silver is very undervalued, and you have a lot of people that are buying that. You know, I prefer gold only just because of how dense you can pack wealth into, you know, these coins, as opposed to, you know, having hundreds or thousands of silver coins and bars or what have you. But let me ask you something now, in terms of the valuation of metals. You know, we are seeing right now, you know, real world inflation. You know, do you think the Fed is ahead of it or behind the curve when it comes to inflation?
I think the Fed is definitely behind the curve, but I think the Fed, to be fair, exists behind the curve. They're a very reactionary group.
Yes.
Inflation is at a point right now that I would not have conceived of 12 or 24 months ago. What I mean by that is to see officials, Fed officials, and the President of the United States talking about official numbers of 4.6, 5.4% annualized inflation in the #1 economy in the world, is a staggering, stark thing for us to be witnessing right now. And it's the exact environments that I've built all of my businesses the last several years for, and why I've done things like stacked physical metals and invested so much of my money in the metals.
So in terms of hyperinflation, there's some experts that say hyperinflation is here. Do you agree?
I think it depends on your definition of hyperinflation. So right now, at the numbers that are being touted by the Fed of 5% inflation number, in 14 years, the US dollar loses half of its value. So, it takes twice as many dollars in 14 years to pay for something. In the past, back in the 70s, there was a period of 15% inflation with the US dollar. That would take about 5 years to lose half of its value.
Wow.
So, it really comes down to the definition of hyperinflation. Do I think we're going to turn into Zimbabwe? No. The US dollar is tied to petrol. Petrol is the biggest commodity in the world. And because of that, we have a bit of a stranglehold. We also have some of the smartest, hardest working people in the world, and we have an economy that produces things. So, I don't think we're going to end up in a situation of runaway 100,000% inflation. But in order for us to be right, us being a community of people that recognize this issue and are doing things like protecting themselves, buying metals, and speculating on resource stocks, we're not very far away from the exact environment that we want to be in, that historically has yielded incredible returns, while other market participants are losing in a very bad way.
So let me ask you something else, since we're talking about the economy and metal prices. One thing that some people are saying has really been affecting metal prices for sure is Bitcoin. There were a lot of debates between pro-Bitcoin individuals and pro-gold individuals. Do you think Bitcoin has tamed gold's upside potential?
I'm almost alone in saying this, but no, I don't think so. I simply don't buy this argument. And while Bitcoin is theoretically a fantastic inflation hedge, people are not buying it to protect against inflation. People are buying it due to fear of missing out right now. I
agree.
I could talk much more about it, but no, I simply don't buy the argument.
I would agree with you. I dabbled a little bit in it, and it was precisely for the fear of missing out. And I did okay with my timing. I actually bought and sold at the right times, but I would agree with you. And, going along with that contrarian nature that you have, and that you're saying that you don't agree with the argument that a lot of people are saying that Bitcoin has kind of tampered down gold prices. I have had individuals on my channel talking about gold prices and where they see it going by the end of the year. And it looks like they're way off. I had some estimates coming around $2,400, $2,500. And, where we're sitting right now, I think at $1,780, $1,790. I don't think that that's really going to happen. But I'm curious, do you think 2022 will be good for gold prices?
I do. I'm always cognizant and cautious of making short-term predictions because it's very, very tough to do. So, I understand a few months ago people thinking gold could be at 2,400. It's tough to time. 2022. If you'd asked me this question a year ago, I would not have given you as much of an imminent answer with conviction. But everything for me is pointing to much higher gold prices. We've got the inflation picture that we've spoken about a bit. I think you'll find this interesting. I looked yesterday before doing this interview at Bloomberg.com. And if I had done this a year ago, I went to the search bar and I typed in inflation. I'd done this a year ago, I'd get a couple articles a day. I literally got hundreds of articles popping up on Bloomberg written in the last 3 to 5 days. Titles like inflation is here and it's real, fertilizer surging in Europe, Euro inflation breaches 4%. So the narrative is there. And now people are wondering, why is gold not moving yet? Well, believe it or not, historically speaking, and a guy named Jordan Roy Byrne at the Daily Gold has done a lot of great work on this. Historically, almost every single low in gold, a major low, has been hit when the Fed starts hiking rates. So if you went back 3 months ago in the betting markets, the Fed was not going to hike rates until September, October of next year. That has consistently continued to move forward. Why? Because the Fed is now worried about inflation and the market understands it. And as soon as the Fed has to act, they're going to raise interest rates to try to cull inflation. As we discussed before, the Fed is always behind the curve. They're always reactionary. They're using levers to try to counteract things. So if you look at 1971, 1976, 1985, 1999, 2016, those were all major lows in the gold prices that coincided with the beginning of rate hikes by the Fed. I am certain the Fed is going to start hiking rates, and probably earlier next year than most people think, and that is going to be exactly when you're going to see gold start to take off.
And it's funny because, I mean, you're, fairly young, as am I, and when I'm talking about metals from a stacking perspective, I personally want to see metal prices stay low so I could acquire more of it. I want the prices to go up when I'm ready to, kind of retire. But obviously, you being the CEO of Nevada King, obviously you want to see the prices go up. And speaking of which, I did want to talk a little bit about some of your background, a company that you were involved with, Newfound Gold. What has worked with Newfound Gold that you did over there that you're bringing to Nevada King?
Yeah. So Newfound Gold and Nevada King actually began as the very same company back in 2016. And I'll keep it brief, but an interesting story. I met a young geologist named Denny Laviolette back in 2015, and we decided the gold price had bottomed and that things were being given away very, very cheaply. And we wanted to start a company that went ahead and picked up gold exploration and development assets. My background watching my dad he was very successful in Nevada. Denny's background was in Canada. So Denny wanted to go focus on Canada. I focused on Nevada. About 2017, we realized that the company needed to be separated. And what happened is we formed Newfound Gold and Nevada King. Newfound Gold, the concept was we went into a jurisdiction, Newfoundland, that had very little past knowledge of big gold deposits. There simply weren't big gold deposits there. Mm-hmm. And we said, we think that there's something big here. And we went and drilled, and we got very lucky. There was a lot of great work that went into that. And now it's the largest single gold exploration company publicly traded on the planet. So we've got
awesome.
$1.6 billion market cap. We've got 10 drill rigs going. We're spending over $1 million a week in the ground. It's just incredible. Nevada is a very different concept. Nevada is the #1 gold producer in the United States. It's rated as the #1 mining jurisdiction in the world. And every time, like clockwork, when the gold cycle goes up, money rushes into Nevada. Mm-hmm. And when the gold cycle gets bad enough, like it did in 2015, people leave. And so we went into Nevada and said, let's go in the bottom of the market and grab the very best ground and put it into a company. And fast forward to today, we are the 3rd largest landholder in the entire state. The only companies bigger than us are the Barrick Newmont joint venture and a company called Kinross Gold that you and most of your listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with. So we're right up there with the big boys.
So let me ask you, is Nevada King Gold, is it undervalued? And also, how much of that company do you personally own?
Yeah, I've got well over 10% of the company. And the management and other insiders have quite a bit more, so it's well owned. I wish I owned even more of it, but I've got a significant position, significant amount of my personal net worth in it. It is undervalued, and here's what's happened over the last 14 months. We took Nevada King public about 14 months ago, and since then, let me say before that, there had not been a single major mining company entering or re-entering Nevada in 10 years. Since then, in 14 months, we've had 7 companies. So you've got Anglo Gold, Newcrest Mining, Equinox Gold, First Majestic Silver, Hochschild Mining, Calibre Mining, have all entered or re-entered the state with multi-million, $100 million deals. And so what you're seeing happening is as the resurgence of interest starts to come into gold, that is pouring back into the #1 mining jurisdiction in the world. And there's going to be a recognition event that we have the very best ground as people start focusing towards exploration again.
So let me ask you, and speaking of exploration, and why can nobody else repeat the claim staking strategy that you executed with Nevada King?
You probably heard the statement anytime there's a discussion about real estate that they can't make more of it.
Yep.
And that's exactly the case here. So we've focused 100% of our attention on what's called the Battle Mountain trend. There's two main trends in Nevada. One of them is called the Battle Mountain trend. It's roughly north-south towards the center of the state. And then a little further east, there's something called the Collin trend. Between these two trends, you have 90% of the gold production in Nevada. We decided to focus on the Battle Mountain trend. It's the most prolific trend in the state.
Okay.
And all of our ground is staked within the confines of that trend. If you go look now, there's simply very little to none available of quality substance. So we've done the work in the bottom of the market, and nobody can repeat it now.
Very awesome stuff, for sure. I want to ask you, too, because you are a very personable individual. Where can my viewers watching this discussion, can they find the best information on the company, and how can they reach out to you and your team personally?
We have a very informative website. It's nevadaking.ca. And then if anybody has questions for me, I usually respond within minutes, if not hours. My personal email is Colin, Collin, at nevadaking.ca.
I might test you on that and just send you an email and see how long it takes you to respond. Last question before we wrap up. Favorite Star Wars character? Do you have one?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person. I feel
you have too many things on your plate to be messing around with Star Wars. I get it. Colin, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I'll put all of the information down below, and I do appreciate all the time.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to do it again.
So what are your thoughts on silver and gold? Do you think you should be stacking silver over gold? Do you think you should be increasing your gold? I'm curious as to what your strategies are, because personally, I do like silver, but I still am very bullish on gold. I just love the metal. I love how it looks, and I do love that you can store a relatively large amount of wealth in one coin as opposed to that same amount in hundreds of coins. So what is it that you are doing, and what are you starting to think about for 2022? Are you going to start pivoting now and buying gold before prices take off, or are you going to be sticking with silver? Comment down below. And I would like to quickly thank these elite channel supporters. And if you haven't already become a channel member, please check out the awesome perks and join today. With that, this is Empire Precious Metals. Until next time, long live the Empire.